Live from the U.S. Embassy here in Pretoria, and I can tell you the crowds that have gathered here are watching this U.S. election like you would think it was our own U.S. Election taking place here in South Africa, but nonetheless it's a global power, it's a world power. Whatever the results are that come out of America affect us directly, and that's why the interest is so high. Well, as we looking on the screens right now, we can see that Donald Trump has gone even further ahead, because the projections are now that he has won Florida. He has taken the state of Florida, and he's sitting at, I think, 240 electoral votes right now, and that's compared to Hillary Clinton sitting at 209. And that certainly is a big difference, because the winner needs 270. So it really is looking as though Donald Trump is moving ahead very, very fast in these elections, and we'll continue to monitor them as the results do come in. Of course, there are all these states that still need to be counted, and as they do come in, they add it on, and they're doing it in a very, very quick manner. This, of course, is done that way in the US when it does come to these things. Well, I mean, if you have to see, well, I've just seen another breaking news story coming through that Hillary Clinton has won Washington's 12 electoral votes, so that's taking her up again a little bit further. So, you know, as we come here, it keeps on changing. So that's one thing you have to know, is that these votes are coming in, they're changing fast and furiously, and will continue to do that. But a lot of the Trump supporters are celebrating and already claiming victory. But again, it is far too early to be able to call any result right now. And many people are analyzing what it is and how the leaders of the world are changing right in front of us. And that's one thing that we certainly are going to be having a look at. I mean, wherever it has happened this year, and many comparing what's happening in the US with the votes taking place when it came to Brexit, and how people didn't expect Brexit to happen, but it did indeed happen. And now, of course, we are having a look at what's happening with the US elections. Many had predicted that Hillary Clinton would walk this one, but it's not that easy for her. All right, well, let's get a little bit more now. And joining us on the program is the ambassador from the US to South Africa, Patrick Gaspard. He, of course, is hosting this election breakfast for the international community and the media, and he is here to just talk to us a little bit more about what's unfolding. It's so good to see you again, Ambassador.
It's always great to see you, Leon. Thank you for having me on.
Yeah, it's an absolute pleasure. So I know you came running in. You were busy having a look at them. What is the updated results? I mean, I'm just trying to have a look on my phone and see what's the latest.
It's still incredibly close. Donald Trump has a slight lead in some critical states like Michigan and Wisconsin, which could end up determining the outcome of this contest. But I think it's probably going to be several hours before we know the results.
Really? So several hours, because they seem to be so fast. These results coming in exceptionally fast. How are these?
There are some critical battleground states in the west coast of the United States, like Nevada, and if Hillary Clinton and Donald Trump split Michigan and Wisconsin, then the west coast will become incredibly important.
All right. So we've still, like we keep saying, I mean, there's a lot of people celebrating, ready for seeing Trump. But like we're saying, we've got to calm down, take it easy, because there's still these major states that have not declared yet.
I had the good fortune or the misery of working on Al Gore's presidential campaign in 2000, and you know how close that one was. And this is looking like that kind of nail biter right now.
Yeah. I mean, you've been through these. We've seen these happening. I mean, however, when it came to Barack Obama, that was quite an easy one, I have to say. I remember broadcasting here that day as well, and I think by this time it had already been called. I think they had said, listen, it's Barack Obama. That was an overwhelming majority.
Yes. Yeah, but we're seeing that the Obama coalition of young Americans, of African Americans, Latinos, of progressive urban Americans, college-educated Americans, does not seem to be holding as well for Hillary Clinton now as it did for Barack Obama in 2008 and 2012. She seems to be underperforming the president's turnout in key districts across the country. And at the end of the day, that could cost her the contest.
Yeah.
But I have to say, Leon, no matter who wins, it's really an exciting moment when 120 million Americans are expressing their preference for the presidency. We're doing it in an open, transparent, peaceful way, and we're doing it in a way that affirms all of our best values. So no matter what the outcome is, it's still an important moment for democracy and our institutions.
Let's talk about the electoral system, how it's working. I mean, obviously we know how ours works, but in America, is it much different to how we vote here in South Africa?
It's very different. Americans cast their ballots in much the same way that South Africans cast their ballots, where one person goes to their voting booth, they give their choice, and it gets counted. But at the end of the day, in state by state, the outcome of the popular vote is not what's counted to determine who the president is. Each state is given what's called electors, and they're part of the Electoral College. There are 538 electors who comprise the members of Congress plus U.S. senators. And each state, when you win their state, you win their electors, and that goes towards your total. And you have to get 270 electors in order to become the president of the United States. So there have been instances, rare, but 3 times in our history, where someone has won the majority of votes, as Al Gore did in 2000, but lost in the Electoral College count and therefore did not become president.
Yeah. Gosh, it's going to be an interesting one. We just saw now.
It's an interesting and odd system, but it's created that way to make sure that the larger states don't overwhelm the voters from the smaller states.
Yeah. We're having a look at results coming in, and we just saw that it looks like Trump has taken Florida. Now that's a big state and a big win.
It's a big state. It's important for him. Barack Obama managed to bring Florida back into the Democratic column in 2008, 2012. Hillary Clinton did not need to win Florida or Ohio or North Carolina. If you look at the opportunities that she had in her path to 270 electoral votes, but that's a very big state and consequential. And you have to give Mr. Trump credit because he always said he'd be able to win there and dominate with rural voters, and he's been proven to be correct.
Yeah. I mean, if we have a look at the way that leadership is changing around the world, and it certainly is, and I think it's a big conversation that one must have. You look at a normal campaign that would be run in the US, and you look at a campaign that was run by Donald Trump, and not necessarily one where he was supported by a lot of people except by the people. And it seems that the people's voices are getting louder and louder these days.
They are. Donald Trump certainly broke all convention, but as you said, there are trends in the US that we're seeing in Europe and elsewhere, and I think it really speaks to the economic anxiety that still exists across the globe several years after the Great Recession. There's still a sense that too many people have, certainly a lot of Americans have, that they're not sure that their children and their children's children will do better than they did in the economy. They're not sure that there's the kind of future prosperity that we've been able to claim in the past, and they're looking for absolute change and transformation, even radical change and transformation.
Yeah. I mean, have you spoken to, how's everybody feeling back home in the States? I mean, I can only imagine. I can feel a sense of nervousness here and expectation, and I don't know what kind of expectation we're feeling here, but I can imagine what they're feeling in the States.
There's always anxiety when you see the unexpected happen. Right now, we see that the Dow Jones average has gone down 700 points, which is lower than it dipped after 9/11.
Wow.
So there's a sense of trepidation, anxiety, and a lack of clarity about where things are headed in our political discourse and in our economy. Donald Trump made some bold statements about what he thought our trade relationship should look like, and all of that gets called into question, should he be the victor? But we are several hours away from being able to determine that.
I love the way you're saying that, several hours. Our history will be determined in several hours. What does our history look like? And let's talk South Africa, because we've got very good relations with the USA, and hoping that it'll continue no matter who the president is. What does it look like for South Africa if, in fact, there is a Trump win?
You know, what's fantastic about our relationships with South Africa, our relationships in sub-Saharan Africa writ large, is that it's one of the very few places where we have bipartisan consensus in our government. We've had many Republican senators, Republican Congress members, Democratic senators and Congress members come here together on joint trade missions, on missions around health, on missions around development and reconstruction, missions around education. And to a person, they all affirm the health of the bilateral relationship. And they know that in order for Africa to succeed, South Africa needs to succeed. In order for us to get positive economic outcomes in trade in California and New York and Florida and Texas, we need positive outcomes in Pretoria, Johannesburg, and Cape Town as well. So no matter who wins, you'll see a continuation of the strong, enduring partnership between Americans and South Africans.
Yeah, it's comforting for us to hear that, because that that's what South Africans would like to hear, and then, because we're on the brink of the unknown, and that's something that we need to hear. Let's talk about Barack Obama for a while, because I think we need to talk about the legacy.
That's one of my favorite subjects.
Good, let's do that. Let's talk about him, because he has left behind a legacy, and a legacy that I think, the world has looked on and admired Barack Obama. What would you say has been one of the highlights of his presidency?
I think that one of the absolute highlights is the way that Barack Obama, with some real determination and a sense of urgency, helped to restore stability in the U.S. economy, and that had consequences clear across the globe. We are in the longest period of job growth in America that we've had in a generation, and for the first time in a while, real wages are going up. That's consequential. In the U.S., of course, we also now have millions of Americans who have access to health care who did not have it before Barack Obama put his political currency and capital behind passing universal health care in the United States. That's terribly important. And we've also seen a reset with many relationships across the ocean, from the nuclear deal with Iran to the rapprochement with Cuba to the remarkable investment partnership that we have in sub-Saharan Africa, where we've increased investments by 70% over the last 8 years. And I also want to remind us all that when Barack Obama walked into office, not only did we have the Great Recession, but he inherited 2 wars where there were hundreds of thousands of U.S. troops overseas engaged in just terrible circumstances, and he managed to withdraw those troops as well. So there's been a reset overseas, stability in our economy at home, and I think an improvement in many of our relationships across the board.
A very admirable man, and somebody that we certainly respected so much here in South Africa, and will continue to, because I think his work is not going to end. In fact, he's always said that his work is now going to begin when he gets out of office.
That's right. And can I just say that love is mutual? Barack Obama has a profound affinity for South Africa, the people of South Africa. He always talked about how his first political engagement was in the anti-apartheid movement, and how Nelson Mandela was his number one hero on the planet. That's going to continue, and you'll see some engagement from him, I'm certain, in his post-presidency in this region.
Fantastic. We look forward to that. I want to get back to politics now of
Must
what's
we?
happening.
Must we?
We have to. We've got to do this. We've got to analyze this. A lot of people looking at what's going on again in these U.S. elections now. We're talking about the Republicans taking over, if Trump wins the presidency, taking over the presidency, taking over the Senate, and taking over the House. When was that last the situation?
Actually, when President Obama won in 2008, Democrats had control of the presidency, the House, and the Senate as well. Lost the House in 2010, but that moment did exist in 2008 and existed under past presidencies as well. We don't yet know that we're going to get that trifecta tonight. The jury is way out on that, but it's certainly a possibility.
Yeah, it certainly is a possibility, and I can tell you...
Not what was anticipated, because there was a sense that Americans actually wanted divided government, wanted checks and balances. Thus far in the results, that's not what we're seeing county by county.
Yeah. I mean, social media is going insane. I would like to, at the end of all of this, see if social media on election day of 2016 has broken all records, because I'm finding it impossible to refresh. Every time I'm refreshing, trying to find results.
That South African Twitter is bad for your health. You have to be careful and mindful.
This is world Twitter I'm looking at. It's unbelievable. Listen, I think you've got to go back there. I know that you're on tenterhooks to see where we're at right now. Thank you for your time. Good luck for the rest of the day and the next couple of hours. They're going to be big ones. Thank you so much, Ambassador.
Thank you so much for having me on.
Always a pleasure. All right, that's the U.S. Ambassador representing, here in South Africa, representing the U.S. I don't know if you caught the nervousness there a little bit. Well, I think that's the sense of everybody around here. Nobody really knows which way this is going to turn, but certainly it's something that is huge. And one thing I can tell you that I'm reading here on Twitter, and I don't know which way to look at it, but one of the big stories coming out here is that the immigration system, it's an online immigration system for Canada, has actually gone down. It has crashed due to too many Americans trying to access the immigration system to go and live in Canada if Trump does win this election. That's what's coming out this morning. That's something that I'm finding all over the place when it comes to searching for the U.S. elections. Goodness me. Let's take a break here on the program. We're going to go and have a look and see how these election results are faring right now. It's a momentous day, history in the making. They're going to ask you where you were on this day. Stay tuned.